What's up guys, Johnny here, welcome back. Today I want to talk to you something a bit new for me. It's something different to test. It's a brand new frame, and that is the box frame that's been driving the European guys nuts. I've seen a lot of talk, a lot of hype, a lot of stuff about how you need to fly a box frame. Box frame flies better than anything you could ever imagine. It flies on rails, etc, etc. Actually, when I first started hearing about these frames, I wasn't hearing about box frame, I was hearing about vertical arms. Now, if you guys remember, maybe about a year and a half, 2 years ago, there was the Talon SVX by Korea that came out. And that was the first frame that I ever saw that actually had vertical arms. And the theory at the time was that the downforce from the props, it wouldn't be blocked by the arms because they're vertical, there'd be less material there to block, you get more thrust, it'd be a faster quad. That was the theory back then. Well, if you ever look at that frame, you'll notice that there's these side braces on that build, but that's it. Now, what the European guys have been doing is they've actually been building a box around that frame, and what that supposedly does is that they act like wings. So on the side, supposedly it helps in carving better, and on the bottom, it gives you a little bit of lift that apparently allows you to run a little bit more tilt and still have more uplift that lets you go faster on the course. So those are the things I've heard about. Less likely to hit the ground, you go a little bit faster that way, faster in the corners, more direct. We saw SFPV recently say it flies a lot more like in the sim, so don't want to start the whole sim mode thing like there is in Flight 1, but that's the theory that I've heard. So anyway, I got a brand new frame in that I want to build, test, see how the experience goes, and that is the SouthEastFPV knife box frame. So I have it right here, haven't put it together yet, haven't even taken a look at it. The things that I do notice is there's a lot of parts. So it makes sense because the arms are vertical, because they're side pieces, there's more pieces that have to go into this frame. It's going to take a little bit more work to build, might be a little bit more complicated, but hopefully in the end, the enjoyment of flying it, the feeling of it on the course, and hopefully the lower lap times are going to result in the sorts of things that we want to see, and the fact that it's a little bit more complicated build won't matter. So what I really want to test out here is I want to put this thing together, use my same setup that I use on my other builds. I then want to take it out and run it on the global qualifier track, the multi-GP global qualifier. I've ran that I think 3 or 4 times now. Most people around the country, around the globe, are probably familiar with that track, so you should be able to understand roughly what the lap times are looking like and if it's fast or slow times. So I've ran it before, I can always compare to those results, but the plan is build this thing here with the same setup as my other quads, take it out to the global qualifier, run my standard quad, run this quad, run my standard quad, run this quad, compare the lap times, compare the consistency that I'm getting, and does it perform better than a standard Floss 3 frame? Is there something to this hype, or is it all hype? Let's find out. Let's get this thing built up. Let's see how the experience goes, and let's take it out of the field and check it out. Let's get to it. All right, guys, so we got this frame put together. We're out here at the field. We got the global qualifier all set up. It's a bit cold. That Michigan weather's kind of hitting us hard here late in May, and it's still only 50 degrees out. A little bit windy, but we're gonna see how it goes. Anyway, as far as the box frame goes, putting this thing together, the knife, it took a little bit of work getting it put together, a little bit more than I'm used to with traditional frames. One thing that kind of worked against me is that the front arms are actually sitting lower than the box itself. So when you lay it flat on a table, you can't just wedge things in together. So you gotta kind of get your fingers contorted, do a little bit of gymnastics and get that put together. Not too difficult, but it does take a little bit more work than a traditional frame. Something else to keep in mind is there's just more pieces here. So you have a top and a bottom that goes into each motor. You get the TPU to add a little bit more protection. There's just things going on. The one thing I did find that really helped me out when I put it together is the mid plate here. I actually attached the flight controller to the top, the ESC to the bottom, built that completely separately, built the frame itself with the arms, and then once that middle piece was ready to go, I slotted it into the 4 arms and then attached it. They made building it a little bit easier. They made building, the stack really easy. The other thing you really notice is there is a ton of room through here. I put a lot of space in between the flight controller and the ESC because in theory there's noise there maybe it'll fly better, and there's just so much space, might as well take advantage of it. I think I'd prefer if it was a little bit more compacted in that way. So like there's so much space in here for the camera that could be lower in the frame, that could save some of the standoffs, maybe that make it a little bit more durable, but we'll see. What I really care about is how does it fly today. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get warmed up with this thing, get warmed up with my traditional quad out here on the qualifier, then I'm gonna run some actual heats, track my consistency, track my lap times. Rumor has it this thing should make me a lot faster on the track, and if I can somehow shave half a second, man, I'll be a pig in oh, I'm even happier than that. So anyway, let's get this thing warmed up. Let's get on the track. Let's see how she flies. We'll get some first impressions. How does it feel? And then we'll try those lap times. All right, guys, just put through my first pack on that thing. That thing is really, really weird. So it definitely flies very different. I can't say it's better or worse. Definitely slow that I'm used to, but it's something different. That was just my first pack. I'm gonna get a bunch more and try to get warmed up. Flight characteristics, it doesn't drop the same as a normal quad. It feels like stuck almost when I try to slide it sideways like I'm used to. It just doesn't do it. So it's a really weird sensation. I really got to get used to it. I didn't expect it to feel that different than my normal quad, but let's just try to get used to it and see how it goes. All right, guys, just put through 12 packs on the box frame, the knife, the SouthEastFPV knife frame. It is very different flying this than a traditional frame. I can tell you that right off the bat. The other thing too is it's pretty windy out here. It gusts up to 20 miles an hour maybe. Usually the wind isn't too bad. But dude, on this frame, when you hear wind, it pushes you way to the side. I feel like having those braces on the side, it really does act as something to push against in the wind. It'll slide you around. It's just really, really disconcerting. In a windy day, it's really tough. So far my lap times are doing all right. It took me a while to get used to it, but 12 packs in, I feel like I'm relatively used to it. I'm not as comfortable as a traditional frame, but you know, it's working. Fastest 3 consecutive so far, 40.0 seconds. Fastest lap overall, 13.0. Those are decent times. Not quite what I get on my traditional frames, but really good, really close. So I'm gonna switch over to the traditional frame, try to get used to it, then start running actual heats, comparing the data, see if maybe my consistency got better. We'll go from there. Had a couple crashes, not too much in 12 packs. That's probably a pretty good sign, but let's get back to ripping on the traditional frame. All right, guys, so one thing I can say for sure is it is tough going between those two frames. They fly totally different. When I first went back to my traditional frame, I felt like I forgot how to fly totally. I couldn't make it through a gate. I hit the first gate, I just crash. Couldn't do it. They definitely fly very different. Anyway, with enough practice, I'm back to flying okay. Not quite as consistent as I was seeing with the box frame, but I'm getting pretty good times. Actually had a faster time with my traditional frame than the box frame. So a 12.9 fastest right now. Traditional frame, 13.0 box frame, about the same, but fastest 3 consecutive so far, that's the box frame. So anyway, the one thing I did notice for sure is my fastest times, no matter what frame I was using so far today, has been these Talon FAF packs. These things are legit. I can't wait to put some more cycles in them, bring you a full review, but first impressions are damn good. These are the best packs I'm running right now. I think they're probably the Tattoo 1300s. Honestly, they feel just as good as a brand new Tattoo for a little bit cheaper. So Heli Nation, way to go. These things are legit. Anyway, I'm gonna start doing real heats now, tracking the difference between the box frame and the traditional frame. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run the traditional frame first because that's what I'm used to, then run the other one. Maybe I'll do 6 heats each, compare the data, compare the lap times, compare the consistency, fast 3 consecutive, see how they do.
Let me tell you, not because my eyes are open, your words will keep bouncing away. And even if you're trying to hurt me, my skin's getting thicker each day. I don't know how you fall asleep at night, knowing that your words are hurtful, it's just not right. Not because my eyes are open, your words will keep bouncing away. Like a ricochet, like a ricochet, like a ricochet, like a ricochet. I used to let it in, all the things you said. You try to turn me into somebody else, but it will ricochet. I won't let it bite. I will look at you and tell you that I'm alright. Like a ricochet, it will come back to you.
All right, 5 rounds of qualifying in the books on the traditional frame. Results I saw there, 39.3 fastest top 3 consecutive, fastest lap 12.8. Pretty decent results, happy with that. Switching over to the box frame, gonna give myself a few rounds just to get used to it again. Then I'm gonna try 5 qualifying rounds and compare the times between the two.
I think that you should let go, 'cause you know this is not meant to be. Let go. Maybe I should have known that you are not the right one for me. Let go. I should have known, I should have known you are not right for me. So let go, so let me go, so let me go. You are not right for me, so let go, go. Let me go, go. Let me go, go. Let me go, let me go, let me go, go. Let me go, go. Let me go, go, go. Let me go, go, go. Don't call me, I don't wanna talk to you. I'm better off not talking to you. But why you trying to hold on, to hold on, to hold on? Wanna take a different lane, wanna play my own game, and I don't need you here, so won't you let me go? Wanna take this ball and chain that you have put on me and throw it out the window. I think that you should let go, 'cause you know this is not meant to be. Let go. Maybe I should have known that you are not the right one for me. Let go. I should have known, I should have known you are not right for me. So let go, so let me go, so let me go.
All right, guys, so one thing that's definitely true so far for me is it seems to be easier for me to go from the traditional frame to the box frame. That kind of surprised me. As soon as I put the pack in, I hit a gate because it doesn't fall the same. But once I get used to that, after about 5 seconds, I was flying pretty consistent out here on the track. Surprising thing, 12.9 fastest lap, 39.35 instead of 39 on this one. So right now my fastest top 3 consecutive is actually with the box frame. Kind of surprised by that, especially when it's only the second pack I ran. Let's see what happens when I put more packs in.
You say you're fine, but I can see right through. You're holding your secrets for way too long. This can't keep going on. gonna fight for you. They better start hiding. We'll be running with the lions, lions. We'll be running with the lions, lions. They can't run, they can't hide. We won't stop until they're down. We'll be running with the lions, lions. I'll go through fire, I'll climb the mountains for you. Tell me, 'cause I'm looking out for you. This can't keep going on, no, 'cause you're not alone in this. We'll do this together. No, you're not alone in this. No, we're gonna find them, and I'm gonna fight for you. They better start hiding. We'll be running with the lions, lions. We'll be running with the lions, lions. They can't run, they can't hide. We won't stop until they're down. We'll be running with the lions, lions. We're gonna find them. La 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 la. They better start hiding. We'll be running with the lions, lions. We'll be running with the lions, lions. They can't run, they can't hide. We won't stop until they're down. We'll be running with the lions, lions. 'Cause you're not alone in this. We'll do this together. No, you're not alone in this.
All right, guys, just finished up here out at the field, just packed up everything, got in the car, learned a lot about flying. Really enjoyed this frame and testing it out. For just the numbers and results, what we saw today was my fastest lap of today was with the box frame at 12.6. Fastest frame with the traditional frame today was at 12.8. I also had a bunch, I had probably 3 or 4 different 12.6s, so 12.7, 12.8, 12.9, lots of times in the 12s with the box frame, and quite a few on the traditional frame as well. By measuring the fastest top 3 consecutive laps, what I saw was that I was 0.04 seconds faster on the box frame. So basically the same exact time on both frames. The interesting thing about those times is I flew a lot more packs today with the box frame than my traditional frame. So I do think that if I flew more packs with the traditional frame, I might have had a faster lap on that one. So I don't think it was a huge difference, but I did learn a ton about flying. So we're gonna pack it up, head home, take a look at the DVR footage, and take a look at how the two flew and what we learned and what we think about the frame overall. So let's head home and check it out. All right, so what I have here is I've put together a video showing the knife box frame versus the Floss 3.0 frame, my fastest 3 consecutive laps on each, and running them side by side at the same time to try to help show kind of where I'm seeing the differences on the track. Now, they finish at almost exactly the same time, so the total speed's the same, but the way they get there is a bit different. And what I've noticed by watching the DVR is that it's not nearly as obvious where the differences are as I felt they were while flying when I watched the DVR. But hopefully by watching this DVR together and talking you through it, we can kind of see where the differences are, and maybe that'll help explain the differences in flight characteristics between a vertical arm box frame versus a traditional quad frame. So let's just go ahead and watch this through. I'll try to talk you through what I'm showing, and then we'll go back and take detailed looks at it. So if I get this going right now, we can see it going. They're going about the same speed. And when I was watching this, they both look pretty much the same. And one does it a little bit better than the other, but there's differences every time you fly. 2 places I really noticed a big difference personally is this spot felt a little bit different. The Matty Boobs definitely felt a little bit easier, but this one right here, the little spin around, the pole dancer, I noticed a big difference there every time I was going through. It felt like it was much easier to stay tight to the pole dancer when I was with the box frame than I was with the traditional frame. But it wasn't a massive difference, but in flight, it really felt massive. The other thing too is here, the split S. It felt like every time I was doing the split S move, I was able to keep it a little bit closer to the gate. As I went through, I didn't go as far back, so I didn't have to come back through the bottom gate as much. So let's just go see if we can take a look at the first time through. So again, as we watched that, you saw they finished at exactly the same time. Both of these were 39.3 second fastest 3 consecutive laps. So let's go back here. Let's see if I can find this. So going through Matt's section here. All right, so we're going to take a look at the first time I went through the split S. So coming through here, you can see that on the knife frame is on the left, and it's a little bit ahead. So that might skew things a little bit. But if I just step through this frame by frame, what I'm going to try to show you is just kind of that difference in which one's closer and how far back I go. So one thing to keep in mind here too is that these cameras are identical. I'm using RunCam Racer 2 cameras with 1.8 millimeter lenses. So anything you see in difference here is not due to a camera difference. It's due to a different placement of the quad at that time. So as we go through here, what I want to pay attention to is where the knife frame starts turning around. And it looks like that's about as far back as I get. And you see that the gate kind of fills up the whole screen. I didn't get too far back. Now, it felt like I was actually a lot closer while flying, but you know, things happen so fast while you're flying. So if I just keep going to see where the Floss frame kind of ends up, you can see that it looks quite a bit further away. Now, again, when I'm watching it back in real time, it feels like a very insignificant, small difference. But you can see it is actually a difference. And I would say that in flight, it felt like a massive difference. But what I would say is that the box frame weighs about 40 grams more than the Floss frame. There's a lot of extra carbon that goes into making a box frame. So because of that, I feel like there was a huge feeling of lack of acceleration with the box frame. 40 grams, you really feel that around the track. And I felt like the other quad was just faster. Both were using the exact same Brother Hobby 2207 1750 kV motors. So I don't feel like there was a big difference there as far as the thrust that it should have. But that weight really was noticeable. Top speed was very different. The acceleration was quite a bit different. So I feel like in times like this, as I was going through, I think the geometry of the box frame was helping in a maneuver like this. The weight probably kept it from going as fast, which helped it from going back as far. But also the traditional frame with its lower weight was able to make up that difference easier and accelerate faster as I'm coming out of the split S. And I feel like that's why they're kind of keeping pace with each other in that case. So if I step through here, you'll see that the box frame, I think, stays ahead, but it never got further behind than the other one. But you can see it's really close going through that bottom. The traditional frame traveled further, but it almost made up for it by the fact that it can go a little bit faster. All right, so let's go through this. Another big part that I felt was easier was actually the slalom. This one kind of caught me by surprise. And the first time I was doing the slalom, it was actually more difficult for me with the box frame. And the reason I say that is that as I was coming through the slalom, what I was noticing is that I wasn't swinging as wide as I was doing the slalom with the box as I was with the traditional frame. So the first couple times I did it, I practically hit the flags just because I wasn't getting as wide. And I think what's happening there is I talked about it earlier, but you have the vertical braces on the side. It feels like it really prevents you from sliding right and left of the quad, which I'm used to doing. It's kind of like drifting around those turns. You can't do it as much with the knife box frame. So the downside is, you may not be used to it. You might hit things that you didn't used to, but the benefit of that is that it acts almost like, I'll call it like bumpers in a bowling alley. There's like these barriers that keep you from getting too far off to the side. If you control the traditional frame perfectly, I feel like there'll be less drag and you can take better advantage of that turn. But if you don't, I feel like the knife, frame kind of keeps you in line closer more easily. So it's easier to do that slalom. And I did notice that I was doing that slalom a little bit easier with the box frame throughout the day. So just watching this in real time, probably not the best example there. You see that the traditional frame actually got ahead, but that was something I was seeing throughout the day. Now, another point I want to talk to is the boob section. This one felt a little bit better, I felt, with the box frame, but not much. The thing that's kind of weird is that the section as I come through on the boobs, after I flip around them, this part here where you're turning around, this is one of the places where it's really easy to take this turn too wide. So basically when I fly this, I'm going full stick to the right on my roll, trying to make it back through this gate here, the second one on the side. Now, what ends up happening is sometimes you don't quite get that turn in time. You can hit the outside of that second gate. I felt like the box frame, again, because of those side walls, it was preventing you from sliding, so it was a little bit easier to get inside that gate. Again, not anything that was huge, but a little bit of a difference that I was feeling while flying. Now, on the negative side of that, the box frame feels significantly less agile than my traditional frame. Now, I think a lot of that probably has to do with the fact that there's 40 extra grams of weight on the box frame, but I also wonder if the drag that's being caused by the vertical braces is also causing some drag that's preventing it from being as agile as I have with the traditional frame. So again, this is another case where I feel like it's easier to do the move consistently with the box frame, but I feel like there's more potential with the traditional frame. So it's going to really come down to pilot preference, and pilot comfort with each style to know what works better for that pilot, in my personal opinion. All right, so the other one that really felt different to me was here, the pole dancer section. I'm using the Sean Ames name for this one. He really wants that to spread. But anyway, what happens here is I noticed this time and time and time again. So as I was going over this section, every time I did it, it felt like the box frame just kept this turn a little bit tighter. And you can save a ton of time by keeping this turn just nice and tight. So again, it's tough to tell with the cameras. But again, this is the same camera, the same lens. So one thing you noticed is that they're basically at the exact same spot on the course right now. But the knife box frame is a little bit closer to the gate. And you'll also notice the traditional frame just made up some time on the course. And again, I think that's just because it's lighter. It is actually faster on the course. Right, so watching here as we're approaching these gates, you can see that the box frame appears to be coming through the prior gate just a little bit earlier. But then as I spin around, the traditional frame catches right back up. But again, the whole way, you just see that the gate inside that camera picture is a little bit bigger than the knife box frame. So this is a small thing while watching in DVR, but again, while I was flying, it felt like a massive, massive difference. And again, it was the same thing time and time again, over and over and over again. So, I mean, as you can see, like, again, I mean, when I switched over to flying the traditional frame after flying the box frame, it was extremely difficult to do because they feel that different in flight. In practice while flying, the differences are not that huge, but there are consistent differences that I'm seeing while flying these two frames. And again, I just showed you through the DVR what those specific differences are. This is two different approaches to get basically the same exact time on this course. There were slight differences. The traditional frame I felt was a little bit faster, a little bit easier to accelerate. The knife box frame is a little bit easier to keep it in line. And that was kind of the big difference. So yeah, so where does that bring us? All right, so there you have it. We've taken this frame from just pieces. We put it all together. We took it out on the course. We flew it. I talked about my experience flying with it. You know, what I liked, what I didn't like, and kind of how that went. But how does this work to sum it all up? First things first, what I want to say is that this frame currently sells for, I believe, $65 or $66. You can find it on PureFlip, Get FPV, Heli Nation, and probably other stores as well. For the amount of things that are included in this frame, all the carbon that I showed earlier, the different TPU pieces, all that stuff, that price to me seemed extremely low. Given the complexity of this design, given the amount of carbon involved in the design, I really thought this would have ended up being something more like a $95 frame. And I think that's kind of what you're seeing a lot of the popular ones over in Europe going for. So, you know, kudos to the SouthEastFPV guys for pulling that together. Selling a frame like this for $66, I think that's just, you know, that's a really good price. That's a bargain. That's a good deal. So kudos to them for that. The other thing I'd say is that I do think that there's a clear place for this in the market. I was flying with one of my buddies locally. As he was flying, he had the same conclusion. I can tell there's a use for this frame. I feel like depending on the track that you're flying on, having these vertical bars, having the box frame around it, it makes certain obstacles easier, and I think will help certain people have better lap times. Me personally, I think that the global qualifier track that we are running in this video is one of the prime examples of a track that would benefit from a frame like this. Now, you might say I didn't see a huge benefit. I saw 0.04 seconds difference in time, which doesn't make a big difference. And that's true, but I think that different pilots are going to benefit different amounts from a frame of this style. I really do feel like it's almost like, I don't want to say training wheels because it sounds negative, or even bumpers in bowling, but I really do think that it helped confine you on the track to keep you from getting too wild and out of control. It kept you within that area that you should be, helping you run a little bit better lines, helping people run tighter lines, and eventually get better lap times from it. So I feel like there's a huge number of pilots who would benefit from this style and be able to run faster, more consistent lap times. And I think there's something to be said for that. And I think it is something that's worth checking out for a lot of pilots. Now, to this specific frame, I talked about it earlier, but there are definitely some changes that I kind of would love to see. This frame is really optimized for 30 by 30 stacks. I typically run 20 by 20 stacks, and therefore I was using a 30 by 30 setup here versus a 20 by 20 setup inside my Floss. Now, still the same powertrain, still the same propeller, still the same camera, VTX, all that stuff. So that difference is relatively small, but I would love to see a frame that's a little bit more compact in the middle, fits that 20 by 20 better, had a little bit less space here in the middle. It is so much wasted space in there. Compact that down, save a little bit of weight on the frame. If this thing could chop, 15, 20 grams off it somehow, it'd really help it out, because I really felt like that weight was hurting it for me personally around the track. I'd love to see if we can get down a little bit on the weight. So far, I'm pretty happy with the durability. It's been working out pretty well. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So bottom line, what I'd say is, am I going to switch to this style frame? Probably not. I feel like there's more greater potential for me with a traditional frame being lighter and more agile, and that's going to have better long-term benefits for me. But I do feel like I could run this better on certain tracks than others, and I do feel like it will be beneficial for a number of pilots out there. There's certain optimizations I'd like to make to the frame, but overall, the frame works really well. It was durable. It flew great. It went together pretty easy. I like the way the middle section works, where I was able to build up the arms first and drop the middle section in. It's a great option, and I think it's no wonder that so many stores are starting to carry it as an option for people to fly. So I think this frame's going to do really well. It's not the perfect frame for me, but I think it will work well for a lot of you out there. If you do want to check it out, I'll include some links down below on different stores and where you can buy it. And let me know if you've tried it, what you think. Let me know if you pick one up, if you like it, if you don't like it. I'd love to hear from you guys. And as always, I'll catch y'all next time. Peace!
Lions, lions.